What's up? Today we've got a really funny opening line to cover. In one of the most classical chess openings, the Italian game, there is a way for white to go for the Evans Gambit. And it's actually a fairly dangerous opening. You definitely need to be prepared against it. And the line that I'm about to suggest to you is really a big surprise for white. In fact, let's have a little quiz. I'll give you 5 attempts to guess which move I'm about to recommend to you here. So please think about this. You have 5 attempts to guess 5 different moves, and we'll see if you can guess the move which I'm about to share with you, the variation. Go ahead, and by the way, let me know in the comments if you could guess it or not. So the move is the move pawn d5. It's not anything you expected, because I mean clearly instead the common move would be bishop takes b4, the main move maybe knight takes b4, or at least the bishop could retreat somewhere to b6 or to e7. All those moves are more or less known, but nobody expects you to play d5 all of a sudden and create this, crazy situation in the middle of the board where everything attacks everything. So I'm not saying that this is like a winning move, but that will sure as hell soon confuse your opponent and get them out of their opening knowledge. And you have a lot of tricks to follow up, so if your opponent is not careful enough, you're gonna win here afterwards anyway. Now after d5, since everything attacks everything, it's time to take something. White can capture here in different ways. We're going to see them all. Let's start with bishop takes d5. What are you going to do here? Well, then you also recapture knight takes b4. White took a pawn, you did the same. Now you're attacking this bishop twice together with your queen. The bishop is going to come back, and after that basically you just develop, very simply, knight f6, castle, bishop g4, all the most natural development moves. Usually your opponents will play here pawn d3 to defend this pawn. By the way, some of your opponents instead will decide to capture this one. Knight takes e5. Looks really cool for white. White won a pawn and white is attacking this one on f7. But in fact, this move is highly welcome by us because then you've got the refutation queen to d4 and you win. Queen d4 just attacks way too many things at once. This is a triple attack and white just cannot defend everything. I mean, white can take here, but that makes things worse, because in addition to all these existing threats, now this bishop is kind of hanging just as well. So while here lose a lot of material. Going back a few moves, therefore we do know that knight takes e5 is round, fails to queen to d4 counterattack. Therefore white is going to play something like pawn d3 to defend the round pawn. Then you castle, let's say white castles as well, you play bishop g4. Again, very simple chess, you just develop, play all the standard moves. Here there is also a very hidden trick. The most played move here by white is pawn h3. That's how they usually react when you bring your bishop out to g4. But in this position, strangely enough, this turns out to be a tactical blunder, because after this exchange, you've got a mind-boggling move knight takes c2. And looks like you're playing give up chess, but after bishop takes c2 followed by bishop d4, this rook is trapped, so you're getting material advantage, which technically is enough to win if you play proper chess after that, of course. Let's come back to the starting position of our variation here. We just analyze bishop takes d5, then you recapture their pawn. If they take your bishop, guess what? You're taking theirs. Pawn takes c4. In fact, this is the worst variation for white here, and it's pretty difficult for white to play here. Your pawn on c4 is actually doing a good job. If white ever wants to develop and push this pawn forward, after this exchange, all these pawns of white are going to be weak, and that kind of overall makes it harder for white to somehow develop. Anyway, usually they'll simply castle, then we play bishop g4. Another problem in the white's position is that for lack of light square bishop, they can't put their light square bishop here on a2 and neutralize your pain. And if not, you can, go knight d4 and facilitate your threat here, and white's in trouble. White will usually still respond pawn h3, that's what they usually play, and you can just go back bishop h5, saving all the advantages of your position, but bishop takes f3 is actually even stronger, because you just have this forcing attack after that. So if white captures, then once again you have a pleasant choice. You have a tricky line, which very often wins, or you have a more solid, which, strictly speaking, is a better option. So a tricky line is the move knight d4. Hits the queen, hits this pawn on c2 from here. And lots of your opponents will play a tempting move queen to c3, because it defends this pawn and counterattacks this one. It's all good, but it fails to knight e2, forking the king and the queen, so that's how you are gonna win a lot of blitz games. Let's take it back a little. If you want to play more solidly, then queen to d4, objectively speaking, is a stronger move. It's more kind of classical centralization. You're not looking for a trick, you're just playing strong chess. You're attacking the rook, attacking this pawn, And white is completely kind of paralyzed here. If knight c3, you could take the pawn, but you don't even need to do that right now. White can defend it anyway. And after knight f6 and castling, white is completely paralyzed. I mean, let's say white plays rook b1 and you castle queenside. If you think about this, like this pawn is hanging. The bishop can't move because it's gonna guard this one. You know, you're also threatening this pawn twice. Therefore, white, you know, knight and queen can't move away. You're gonna take that one. I mean, they can't play d3 because you're gonna simply win this or this. Like, white is completely stuck. It's even not that easy to figure out any decent move for white here. So you have already a positionally winning game. Okay, so what is the strongest move for white here? The strongest move is the move pawn takes d5, attacking the knight over here on c6. Then you also recapture the pawn, and from here the knight also attacks this pawn on d5. Your queen also supports that, so we're going to take it in the future. The most common move for white here is the move pawn to c3. Which is actually wrong, because, you know, you're going to take this pawn anyway. There was no need for white to, you know, force you to do that, so you will just take it. Knight takes d5, now I'll also take the pawn, and after that you just develop. It's very simple. Like, what I love about this variation is that, like, at first, when you just start it looks completely crazy, but in fact, the following moves are very simple. You're just developing. White goes d4, taking your bishop. The bishop goes back. Let's say white castles, you castle as well, and we have some about equal position. I mean, if they go bishop g5, pinning your knight, you just shouldn't overlook this pin and overlook this knight on c6. Okay, so you just need to defend it. And after that, everything's fine. It may seem like white is a little bit more active here, but this is a temporary thing. You can go queen c7, and you'll neutralize this pin immediately. Also, after queen to c7, this knight is going to be vulnerable. It's going to be attacked. You can go rook e8 and attack it that way just as well. You can play h6. You know, kicking this bishop off. Your knight is taking aim at this pawn, so white can't develop their knight too easily, or else you could take this. So, I mean, like, you've got a lot of things to do here. It's just a normal game of chess and about equal game. Generally speaking, like, having like the complete summary about this line, as always, Stockfish says that every new line is dubious, and with perfect play, white can obtain an advantage. But, you know, practically speaking, nobody is aware of this line, literally. Your opponents are certainly unprepared, and they'll not be able to play like Stockfish. In most of the cases, they'll play ridiculous blunders, and you're going to win very quickly. And even if not, you're going to end up with some normal, more or less equal position. So I do hope that you enjoyed this video. If so, hit the thumbs up. And also, if you want to know how to elevate your chess level overall, I've got a free masterclass, how to advance your chess in the most efficient way possible. If you're curious, you may hit the button over there and check this out. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it was valuable. Talk to you soon.